We're back on sports, and I want to tell you right now, I want to designate a couple things for assignment today, and we're going to start with the Phillies, because the bullpen from now on will be called the blowpen. That's right, because all weekend, you know what, it's not even just all weekend, all right? Every time the Phillies, when they decide to play, because as we've seen, there have been these one-run games or no-run games, when these guys actually put up numbers, the bullpen comes in and blows the lead every time like clockwork. This is ridiculous. This is something that needs to be taken care of now, while it's still early in the season, before it goes any further. If anyone is talking playoffs, and it's funny to keep hearing people talk playoffs so early. You've got to be kidding me. You cannot do this because the consistency is not there. No playoffs until it's fixed, okay? Get that through your heads, Philly fans, all right? But they're not the only people, okay? Because Washington National fans, I have to ask you this. How did it feel? How did it feel for Bryce Harper, that's right, your star player, Bryce Harper, get benched for the inability to run 90 feet? And to make matters worse, the day that he was benched, this was on the front of your program. You know, I'm already sick of this and I have a lot of stuff to cover. I want to speak about Flyers Rangers. That's right. Now, tonight, as we know, is Game 3 for Flyers Rangers. It is here. We have Flyers fans already talking about, we have home ice advantage. No, we don't. All right? Understand this really quickly. Just because we haven't played here in Philadelphia yet does not mean we have home ice advantage. We don't know how these games are going to go. And if it's anything judging from the previous two games, we're in trouble. If you can't sit here and tell me, okay, we won the second game, all right? But it was like a heart attack on a plate. It was ridiculous how the Flyers were playing. Don't sit here and tell me that Berube has still not changed any lines. He's still going to stick with this and then say, well, I'll just take Giroux and put him here and there and keep switching him on certain lines. Only one player. This is not working. Understand, if it wasn't for Jake Voracek on Sunday's game, if it wasn't for him trying to say, people, relax. We got this. We can get behind Emery, who will be starting tonight. Okay? Again, this will be his third game. Understand, if it wasn't for Jake Voracek trying to take the lead and actually lead by example, because he went and scored a goal after that. If it wasn't for him, this game is completely different. Now, all of a sudden, Atkinson has now scored, so now everyone's on the wagon again for him. Look, I'm so sick and tired of this. There is still, if you've watched any game, I'll put it like this. If you watched Montreal versus the Lightning, if you watched Ducks versus Kings, there's a number of playoff games, if you watched, you can see the hunger, the speed, and I mean, these games go into 2-3 overtimes. Blues versus Blackhawks. Look how hard they are skating. Look how hard they want it. Look how bad they want it. Flyers, it doesn't seem like that. It just seems like they're just playing regular season hockey when everyone else is up here. It makes no sense. The Rangers are being very lackadaisical, but they're controlling neutral ice most of the time, if you haven't paid attention. But during all this, then we see Rangers fans once again, that's right, I say once again, coming out and throwing out racist tweets towards the Flyers players. Alright, Flyers fans, look, I don't know why you're getting mad at this. This is nothing new. Have you not caught on to the playoff pattern already? Think about it. Throughout this entire season, actually not just this season, in previous seasons, every time we go into playoffs, what happens? Pittsburgh fans use the race card. Bruins fans have used the race card. All right? Now New York fans are using the race card. It's the same pattern. Don't you see? It's the playoff troll in effect. And yet some of you are buying into this. You know and I know that these guys are trolling. They would never say that in their own damn city, let alone anywhere else. This is why they do it on the internet. You shouldn't let it get to you. You shouldn't let it be the focus. You really shouldn't. What's more bothersome to me is when someone says something like that, you follow them. You follow them. Why would you follow them? That's just stupid. And don't tell me, oh, I just want to see what else he's going to say. No, you're hanging on to every word, that person's every word at that point. You're following them because, pretty much you're rewarding them, because that's what it is. When you're following a person who does something like that, you reward them by following them. That's why it's Twitter. That's how it goes. They're trying to collect more followers. They're trying to be more outspoken by any means necessary. You understand that, right? That's the sad part. But it seems like people have not understood that yet. But what do you expect from Rangers fans? This is nothing new from them. You should know by now that Rangers fans have a history of supporting racist trash. Not to mention, they fall asleep at their own damn hockey games. And then when they are conscious, they end up sometimes at the wrong game, at the wrong stadium, with the wrong sport, with the wrong fans. And during the end of that game, during the Flyers, all right, what happened? Sweet justice. Wayne Simmons scored the final goal, which shut all of them up. That's right. So all those guys that are racist, all of a sudden we start seeing their tweets. What happened? I'm sorry if I offended anyone. And guys start trying to delete their tweets, and then they were still caught on screenshot. And other guys are like, yeah, I was just trolling. And yeah. All of a sudden, nobody's a racist after the game is over. Let me thank the real Rangers fans out there who kept it classy, as far as I'm concerned, because you didn't have to go that far to support your team. I understand the trash talking is going to happen. It's a rivalry. It's the playoffs. I get it, okay? But you don't have to go that far. That's the sad part. So Rangers fans, seriously, you need to put some of your fans in check. You really do. I want to move on to basketball. I want to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers first, all right? Sixers owner Josh Harris, that's right, Josh Harris comes out and says that this season was a success. Really? So, a success at what? At sucking, at losing, at being incompetent? I mean, what was the season? I mean, if you're tanking, yeah, it was a success. I mean, I need to know more on this, why you feel it was a success. And I'll put the link in the info bar. He talks about how, this season, we didn't want to be a one and done in the playoffs. You got to get to the playoffs first, okay? In order to say you're a one and done, you have to have a team that could make it to the playoffs. And you didn't even have that. You didn't even have a team that could win over 19 games? We got 19 games under our belt. Yes, we should sit here and say that's a success. You are praising mediocrity. And then you want these fans out here to come and support you. Are you... Oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. Stop this. This is not a success. We were a laughingstock. Then when that streak was going, laughingstock throughout the entire NBA. Matter of fact, we was a laughingstock of all the sports because no one had a losing record like that. We tied the losing record for a while. Not since the Cleveland Cavaliers. And you're going to sit here and say it was a success? So what? What's going to happen next season? I don't care about the draft right now. The fact is, we have to focus on the now. And when you have owners sitting and saying this type of thing, that should tell you the level of commitment. That should tell you. You're so worried about pricing, marking up. That's right, because anyone look at their Sixers shop, marking up their prices. I'm sure now it's summertime, they're probably going to start marking them down now because basketball season's almost over. But they marked up their prices, all right? They were too busy worried about entertainment for halftime, trying to give you all the little bells and whistles instead of actually giving you basketball. That's why, and unlike Rangers fans, all right, that have a prominent team, that's why when the Sixers were sucking, fans were falling asleep in stands. Fans were falling asleep in the bathroom. This is what happens when you have a bad team. And it's sad that you sit here and do this. I will put it like the Sixers, all right? I understand that you're going into the draft, but Kevin Love is about to be a free agent soon. Minnesota is on his heels. I said this before. Go get him. You wouldn't go get Al Jefferson when I said that. And look how Al Jefferson turned out this season. You didn't want to get him. You don't want to go get Kevin Love. Who are you going to get? You have to bring some vet leadership in here. You have to go get somebody who can actually play. This is something that needs to be taken care of. You know what? I'm going to talk about playoffs, all right? We saw how the brackets are set up. The NBA is talking about doing the brackets differently next time. 1 seed versus 8 seed. They want to get rid of that and things of that nature. However, there was so much hype surrounded by the Heat. And I don't understand this. Because anybody who saw that article, when you sent it to me on Twitter, guys, said, well, is LeBron's legacy on the line if LeBron loses to the Bobcats? Last I checked, it was the Heat, not LeBron. LeBron can't beat the Bobcats by himself. I don't know. Maybe possibly he could. I don't know. But you have to be kidding me here. It's the Miami Heat. And the thing is, since the game started, and they tried to hype it up so much, well, the Bobcats in the regular season, they had a winning record against them. And the Bobcats, come on, if you really think the Bobcats can go X amount of number of games in a series with the Heat, you're crazy. The only people that should believe in the Bobcats are people in Charlotte. And you know what? I put it like this. I'm happy to report, since now that we know that the Bobcats will be no more after this season, that the Charlotte will be getting back the Hornets, as they rightfully should. But don't sit here and tell me you really believe, unless you're outside of Charlotte, unless you're in Charlotte, that the Bobcats have a chance to beat the Heat. Stop this. It's not going to happen, okay? Especially when you have those refs out there. And you guys, a lot of angry fans, all right, after game 1, you guys sent me this. This is why you can't take the NBA playoffs seriously these days. I don't take it seriously at all at this point. You have to be kidding me. Did anyone see what happened last night with OKC and Memphis? Oh, the lucky shot. And they're talking about, oh, he put the dagger in him. And I'm like, hold up. They were talking about, the commentary was so biased and off base. It made no sense. If Kevin Durant makes a shot and his team is still down by 5 points, right? In the fourth quarter. And the commentators before commercial are talking about Kevin Durant just put the dagger in him. No, he didn't. His team is down still by 5 points. Where's the dagger? They try so hard to do something that they can't. And this is the media always at work. This is the machine at work. And if you don't believe me, look what happened with the Raptors and the Nets. This was sent out on the cover of their paper. That's right, before the Nets and Raptors began to play. And those dinosaurs shut the door on the Raptors in the fourth quarter. That's right. So how I feel, media? You know, I'm not going to get on the fans because the fans have every right to either be upset, you know, win or lose. They can feel how they want. I'm not mad at the fans for the Raptors. They did what they need to do. They just support their team. But the media should be ashamed of themselves. But speaking of fans, for anyone who did not say, and don't tell me that you didn't do it purposely, Blake Griffin throws water on a Golden State Warriors fan while Orton posing.
Just dumps water on a fan inadvertently as he was looking at the replay.
I guess now people are going to try to defend that, huh? Because the media are like, oh, well, it was accidental. It was nothing accidental about it. You're going to tell me that he found a Golden State Warriors fan with a bright yellow shirt on in a sea of red. You're going to tell me that he didn't see that guy and he had just fouled out. So don't sit here and tell me he didn't. No, I guarantee you he was hearing a lot in his ear. Don't sit here and tell me he did that accidentally. And then when he turns around, the guy's like, what you throw water on me for? He flags him off. Flags him off like he didn't know. But that's not all. No. It gets worse, all right? Doc Rivers comes out and says he doesn't have a problem with Blake Griffin flopping, that he wants him to keep flopping if that means to keep his numbers up and they keep winning. Doc Rivers, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're going to disrespect the sport, the integrity of this sport, because you're desperate to win. I've lost all respect for you for that. This is why flopping can't get better, you know, can't get abolished in the NBA. Because coaches like him, now before, like with Greg Popovich, he would tell people, you know, he would tell Tony Parker, go ahead, throw yourself out there in the crowd, go flop. He wouldn't really talk about it, you know what I mean? Doc Rivers is coming out and saying this. Look, I don't have a problem with it. Things can't get better if you're having coaches now saying, hey, I don't have a problem with it. You gotta be kidding me. From now on, like I said, I'm designating some things today. From now on, the word flopping, since Blake Griffin loves to flop, the word flopping will now be replaced by Griffin Force. And this is what I mean, an example of Griffin Force.
For the heads on sticks.
Harden gives it up.
I'm moving on to football because I'm sick of the NBA right now. As far as I'm concerned, the NBA playoffs are a joke. They've been a joke for a long time. All right, until you start cleaning this up, the bad ref calls, and we saw so many people last night complain about that OKC Memphis game with the bad ref calls. Like I said, man, sit back. If you're going to watch it, just sit back and just laugh at it. Don't take it seriously. You're going to end up hurting yourself that way. You're going to end up having a heart attack that way. You're going to end up getting gray hairs that way. I'll put it like this. I'm moving on to football. A lot of you guys and girls have asked me to cover more of this Redskins 11 thing, to see the update, what's going on. All right, fine, I don't have a problem with that, all right? But understand that he is not our problem anymore here in Philadelphia. Now he's trying to say he's going to be our problem. Because for those who don't know, he went on the Arsenio Hall show, right? Arsenio Hall show, and said he's got something special for the Eagles twice a year, every time playing, because he's got that revenge factor now. Understand this really quickly, okay? You can be hype. You can have that revenge factor. I understand that. But you can't throw the ball to yourself. Understand that really quickly. You even think that you're just going to come into our secondary or even get off the line because all they got to do is put their hands in your face and you're done, okay? And that's it. You're not just going to start going out there and torching defenses. However, it seems ESPN thinks differently about how he's going to go up against us. And they actually give the Giants, so Giants fans listen, they actually give you guys some credit.
Well, it makes offensively, it makes the Washington Redskins very, very formidable on the perimeter. Now, they still need to straighten out their offensive line, but on the perimeter, it poses a lot of problems for the opposing defenses. You talk about how Philadelphia, how are they going to replace him offensively? The big problem for me is how are they going to cover him defensively? There's no one on Philadelphia's roster that can match up with Deshaun Jackson. When you throw in Pierre Garçon, Jordan Reed, and then the running game, that's a big problem. The New York Giants, we kind of scrutinized them for signing Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. I watched Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie match up against Deshaun in Philadelphia day after day. He's the only guy in that division who can match up with Deshaun and match him athletically and speed-wise. So it's really a good move for the Giants.
And Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie is a player who now looms very large in that division. And that acquisition looks tremendous for the Giants because you talk to the people around the league who watched him last year and say that he was a top-tier elite cornerback. It's exactly what the Giants will need. Now that you have to go up against not only Deshaun Jackson, but Pierre Garçon and Andre Roberts, who they also signed away from the Arizona Cardinals. And Deshaun impacts every player in that Redskins offense. He draws double coverage away from Pierre Garçon. He makes life easier for RG3. He gives Alfred Morris more running lanes. So literally one player can impact all those others on offense, assuming that everything goes well with him, and there are no questions.
Exactly.
So you want to give DRC credit, Eagles fans, okay? Should we let Giants fans in on how DRC played when he played with us? Don't even get me started, all right? But that's not all. All this talk about how Redskins 11 is going to go back to torching defenses and things, understand, he's already acting up in Washington. And they even talk about that as well.
And I said this yesterday about Deshaun. You can't discount the player's ability to mature in this situation because this could be a turning point in his career. And you can't discount that. Players don't like being embarrassed. He does not like having his name out there in the media right now like we're talking about things other than what he is really known for, which is tearing defenses apart. Because that's what his specialty is. Hopefully it's one of those things that propels him to say, you know what, I need to make some changes. And he won't be the first guy and he won't be the last.
Well, he got to Washington and a bunch of the Redskins took him out for dinner that night, and then they all end up at a club and pictures are tweeted. Does that bother you already if you're in the front office saying you're back in a club with the boys?
Well, sure. It makes you pause for a second and go, look, perception is everything. Even if you were just sitting there and you were drinking Sprite all night, the point is it's the perception that as soon as you got there, you were out in the limelight, and it just invites speculation.
So he's already in the clubs, and for those who don't know, Washington Redskins fans, all right, he didn't show up to voluntary OTAs because he was on vacation. He was in Miami hosting more clubs. That's right, we saw the flyers for it on Twitter. So you have to be kidding me if you think that this guy has learned anything. He hasn't, as far as I'm concerned. And I'll put it like this. I want to talk about Eagles draft, all right? Because ESPN brings up a good point about how our secondary. Look, we know our secondary needs to be addressed. But the Eagles, for what we've seen so far, they keep talking about outside linebacker. I don't understand this. I really don't. Secondary needs to be addressed first. However, if anyone's been watching these drafts, or mock drafts even, if you haven't noticed, the people that are going high on the board are all receivers. Now, this is what I don't understand. Because as we know, the first two that are more likely going to go are Clowney and Manziel. We know that, okay? However, there's a number of quarterbacks out there, but there's also a lot of receivers that may go in the first draft. Now, the first round of the draft. Now, ESPN also has been talking about how wide receivers, they've lined up like all these names are who's going to go first. Okay, fine. I don't have a problem with that. And then they go overboard and they talk about how the time of the running back going first is now extinct. You always have to take it to another level. No, that's absolutely wrong. All right? It's just no one really needs a running back right now. There's some teams out there who do. All right? But running backs are pretty much stopped right now. Especially with these different type of offenses that they're running. They're looking for more running back / receiver anyway. Okay? Because people are going to throw the ball in the backfield. But we'll just keep going, all right? Now, as far as I'm concerned, on the receiver front, if we're going to get another receiver in the draft, if we can get him, I'm looking at Odell Beckham. Because the guy he's not only is he fast, but he's a multi-tool receiver. He knows what he's doing. Also, in the line, I've seen a lot of people talk about other linemen, trying to plug up that hole. I personally like to see Justin Ellis out there for us. If we can, like I said, this is if we can snag these guys. Because these guys, I feel, they fit our system more than any other receiver or lineman that I've seen. Our secondary definitely has to be taken care of as far as I'm concerned. That should be #1 priority. But we don't know how the Eagles are going to do things. Like I said, they've been keeping really quiet on what they're going to do in the draft. All we heard was outside linebacker. That's it. That's all we've heard. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens during the draft and see what happens, So I don't know. It's not too far away, so it'll be soon. We'll see. Just get your green on and get ready. And if you don't like it, you have every right to boo at who we get and cheer who we get if you like them. You have every right. However, I will say this before I stop this video: Donovan McNabb has been caught for what we're hearing so far. He was arrested for a DUI. Apparently, I don't know. I wonder how Mama McNabb feels about that. Squeaky clean. McNabb does it after his pro. If you notice, after his pro career is over. And it seems like we're seeing this a lot now with ex-football players and, going on TV and talking football. Keyshawn Johnson just a couple days ago was arrested for domestic abuse, with his girlfriend. And this guy has a history of this. She's not the first person that this has happened to with him. And, I bet you he'll still keep his job on ESPN, though. They said they're investigating the issue. Whatever. Anyways, I'm done. I'll talk to you later. Y'all be safe. I'm out.